Good evening, students. Today I'm going to deal with the second chapter of your Flamingo textbook, that is Lost Spring, written by Anis Jung. In this chapter, there are two subchapters. The first one is Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage, and the second part is I Want to Drive a Car. So, though the both, though both the chapters come under one title, that is Lost Spring, but they are totally different characters, but they reflect the same theme. So in the first part, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. The characters that you'll come across when you read the chapter are the narrator herself, Sahib, and his friends. And in the second chapter, the characters are the narrator herself and Mukesh. And though there are mentions of Mukesh families, but they do not hold much role in it. All right. So both these chapters have the common theme, that is, the pathetic condition of poor or slum or street children who are forced into labor in their early stages of lives, and they are deprived of their right to education. They do not get any chance or opportunity to educate themselves. All right. And the second theme, or you can say the sub theme of the chapter, is the negligence, the carelessness, or coldness or insensitivity of society and political parties towards these poor children or even poor people's sufferings, right? So let's deal with the first part, the title. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. So if I give you a bit introduction about or on Sahib, he is a migrant, a person who leaves his own hometown or his own nation and moves to some other place. So he is a migrant from Dhaka, that is in Bangladesh, and he migrated in the year 1971. So he was not all alone when migration took place. He came with whole lot of people from Dhaka, right, in 1971. The reason why they left their country or their hometown Dhaka is because due to several storms that destroyed his homes and fields. All right. So due to the destruction of his home and fields, they are left with nothing to survive on. So that was the reason why they left Dhaka and moved to India. All right. And then Sahib, now uh, he got settled in Simapuri, which is just on the outskirts of Delhi. And don't just imagine that he is settled in a big proper houses. He is settled in a slum, a kind of slum area. And what he does is he picks rags, picking up rags from the garbage dumps, right? Okay, now the lesson starts with the narrator encountering or meeting Sahib and his friends every morning. So one morning, she asked why Sahib and his friends pick rags and why do they not go to school, right? To which Sahib replies that he has nothing to do, no work to do other than picking up rags. And the second reason why he picks up rags and has nothing to do is because there is no school in his neighborhood. So, if there is a school, he probably will go there to study. But unfortunately for him, there is no school in his neighborhood. Right. So, the next thing that a narrator tells or asks Sahib is um, she half jokingly asks if she starts a school, will Sahib come to that school? she did not mean it. All right, she without any intention of starting a school, she half jokingly asked whether Sahib would come to her school if she opened or began a school. All right, to that, Sahib cheers up. He was full of broad smile and said that he would come. All right, he would definitely come to the school. But after a few days, when the narrator met Sahib, Sahib asked narrator if her school was ready. So the narrator kind of felt embarrassed because she did not mean to start a school. She simply asked, or she simply said it. Uh, but she didn't know that Sahib would take it very seriously. All right, so she was kind of ashamed or embarrassed. Right. Then the narrator asks his name, and he casually answers Sahib-e-Alam. So, but Sahib doesn't know the meaning of his name. So, through the narrator, we come to know that the meaning of Sahib is Lord of the Universe. Right? So, the narrator feels that Sahib would have a difficult time in digesting the fact regarding the meaning of his name, a Lord of the Universe. But what he does is picking up rags rather than ruling the universe, right? All right, so he would have hard time or difficult time in digesting or believing the meaning of his name, right? So then she asks, why why these children do not wear slippers, right? So there are so many different excuses given by the group of boys. One of the boys says that his mother hasn't brought the chappals or slippers from the shelf. And another boy adds, even if his mother takes down the slippers or or the chappals from the shelf, he will throw them away. That means he will not wear. All right. And then another boy in the very group, he is found wearing shoes that are totally different from each other. He says or he expresses his desire of owning a pair of shoes. All right. And then author remembers uh, when she visited several other Indian places before. So whenever she asked people why the people would walk barefoot, the common excuse that is given is it is a tradition for the Indian people to walk barefoot, right? But she kind of knows that it is surely not the tradition, but it is the perpetual state or continuous state of poverty. They are so poor that they cannot afford to buy a pair of shoes or a pair of chappals. But still, she wonders whether that could be the real reason why people walk barefoot, right? Okay, and then she recalls an anecdote from Udupi, which is in North Karnataka. Anecdote means, a short story a short story, and someone from Udupi had told her a story that in Udupi there was a temple, and in the temple there was a priest, and he has a son. All right. So before he goes to school, he stops by the gate of the temple, and then he will always pray for a pair of new shoes. All right. So after 30 years of that incident, when the author visited Udupi, she saw several changes in the place. That's Udupi, right? The uh, the priest was a changed man. It was not the previous priest, but it was a different priest, and he also has a son, and he was wearing pair of shoes But there was change in his prayer. He never prayed for a pair of shoes, but he prayed. Instead, he prayed that he should not lose his shoes, right? Uh, so she could not stop herself from thinking that the prayers made by or prayers said by or the wishes made by the sons are granted, but the rat pickers like Sahib and his friends in Simapuri remain shoeless. That means their desire of, owning even a pair of slippers or shoes remain are not fulfilled. All right. Then the poet goes on to describe Simapuri. So Simapuri, like I said, it is on the outskirts of Delhi, right? But metaphorically stands in complete contrast to Delhi. So this means that even though Simapuri and New Delhi are quite close to each other, they should be equally developed. They equally developed in sense, in all the sense like infrastructure or any kind of development that should be there in Delhi should also be in Simapuri, right? But unfortunately, there's a big contrast between these two places. So in Simapuri, in earlier days, before around 1971 and before that, Simapuri was just a wilderness. Wilderness means, uh, places or space that is not occupied or that is not used by anyone, but it was like filled with bushes, kind of, unoccupied. All right. So it was before 1971, it was just a wilderness. But but after 1971, it was no longer empty, but it was occupied by a population of about 10,000 migrants that had come from Bangladesh, and they had been living there since 1971. So the narrator goes on to describe the kind of houses that they live in. Right, the houses are made with mud, with tin roofs and tarpaulin. Tarpaulin means, it's a kind of a plastic material used to cover um, the houses so as to prevent leakage. All right. So the houses were made with not with bricks, but with mud, and they had uh, tin as their ceilings or serving as roofs. And sometimes during rainy seasons, they would also be using tarpaulins. If you have visited slum areas, you will see plenty of houses made with plastics or houses which has tarpaulin as a roof. So if you happen to visit, you could imagine that there is no proper sewage, there's no proper drainage and no proper running water. All right. So such was the condition of Simapuri or Sahib and his friends or his people living there. Right. And next is the people living in Simapuri, means migrants who have come from Bangladesh. They have no identity, but they do not mind, right? Like we have identity like IC, RC, ration card, Aadhaar card, but these people do not have any identity and they do not mind staying there without any identity. What they have is just a ration card, right? Which helps them or which enables them to get food grains, right? So these days, even the Tibetans uh, get ration if you have the ration card, all right? And that depends whether you are BBL or APL. So APL means you have to give some amount to get the material whatever you are getting through the ration or provided by the government. BPL means you get everything for free. All right. So these migrants do not have any identity, but they have only ration card and they are happy with it because they are able to get food grains, right? They consider food to be more important than any sort of identity. So when author asks the people why they left their homeland or their motherland, one of the lady in the group says, uh, happy being able to feed family rather than. So what she means to say is, as long as they have something to survive on, something to eat rather than sleep with an empty stomach, is something better than nothing. So that's what she means. Uh, Even though Simapuri is just a wilderness or has no proper infrastructure or no proper sewage or drainage system or running water, they do not mind living there because they are able to get something to survive on, or they are able to get food rather than staying in Dhaka and have nothing to eat. All right. She also tells that pitch they set up their tents wherever they find food. Food doesn't mean, ready-made food, rice and dal or biryani or any kind. Wherever they find any source of income. So for these people in Simapuri, the garbage dump is their source of income because they collect garbage that can be sold and can make money out of it. All right. So during such process, children are born and they grow up and they become partners for survival. So there takes place marriage between the children, right? Okay, so rag picking and art. So with the passage of time, rag picking has become a kind of an art for these people. All right. So they know what are the valuable things that they would get in the garbage dump, right? They would not collect each and everything from the garbage. They would collect something that they can make money out of it, all right? So next one is there are two different perception regarding garbage uh, uh, perceived by adults and children. So, according to them, the people in Simapuri, garbage is considered to be a gold mine. You do not know what you will get. All right. So, gold mine. For adults, they consider garbage as a means of survival because they get their daily bread. So, by collecting garbage and selling it off, they make money, and through money, they can buy their food. All right. And they also uh, do not mind even though they are living in a roof that even leaks during rainy season, as long as they have something to live in or to save themselves or have a place to stay, they do not mind. And for children, garbage is something like a surprise that is wrapped in wonder. You do not know what is in it. All right. Okay, so sometimes if the children get lucky, they find a rupee, 1 rupee, or even 10 rupees note. So when they get or when they find 10 rupees note, you do not stop searching for more with the expectation of finding more. So it was something like a surprise to them, right? And one winter morning, uh, the author saw Sahib watching two men playing tennis. So he mentions that he likes the game very much, the game tennis. All right. So he also tells the narrator that the gatekeeper, being kind man, allows Sahib to come into the campus when there is no one around. So when the campus is uh, uh, empty or no one is in the campus playing tennis, the gatekeeper used to allow Sahib into the campus. All right. And that day, Sahib was or is wearing a tennis shoe, and he was happy enough to be wearing a shoe that has a hole in it. He does not mind because there is a hole in the tennis shoe that he is wearing. So, uh, the author knew that the pair of shoes is discarded by a rich child or by a rich kid because it has a hole in it and he refuses to wear it. All right, so it is a discarded shoes, but Sahib does not mind even a hole in his shoes as long as he has something to wear. All right, and then so his dream of wearing a shoe has come true, but the game he likes to play, the tennis game, is totally out of his reach. That means he is not going to achieve that dream or that wish of playing tennis one day. All right. So that's what the author has felt. Okay. And the next one is one morning when narrator was is on her way. Uh, she meets Sahib and he is on his way to milk booth. Milk booth means a dairy, all right, where milk products are sold, all right. So he is carrying a steel can, uh, obviously meant to carry milk in it, and then the steel can seems to be heavier than the plastic bag that he usually carries so lightly. So there's a comparison being made between the steel can that he is wearing on his he's carrying on his shoulder and the plastic that he used to carry when he was picking up rags. All right. Okay, so Sahib tells the narrator that he is paid 800 rupees along with all his meals. So one should be happy, right? He gets an income of 800 rupees a month and he also gets all his meals for free. But Sahib isn't happy because he has lost his carefree look. The carefree look means, the free the expression of happiness that he used to have when picking up rags is no longer found on his face. So through that, one can say, or narrator says, that Sahib is no longer his own master, indicating that Sahib has lost his freedom because he has to work uh, in a tea stall, listening to the order, or abiding by the order given by his master. So he cannot enjoy the freedom that he used to enjoy when he was picking up rags. So this is the first part of the chapter.